now. So hey everyone, live from SiME conference, SiME conference in Stockholm. Donny here, Innovation Fika, 2:30 p.m. Well, it's a bit past 2:30 p.m. today, but as you know, 2:30 p.m. every Wednesday afternoon I go live on LinkedIn and YouTube and all the other channels with some kind of relevant, fun, interesting, fantastic, awesome people that I always get to interview. So today I've actually hijacked some people here from the floor in SiME to speak to them. And there's this kind of a breakout session going on behind us, so we'll probably speak a bit quieter. But anyway, so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'll ask you the same thing I ask everybody else. Who are you and what do you do?
Right. I'm Carina Liljedal, and I'm a researcher over at Stockholm School of Economics.
Okay.
So I'm both at Center for Consumer Marketing and Center for Retailing, and that sort of gives you an idea about what kind of research I do.
So
Consumers and retailing.
But okay, so you do research into consumers and retailers.
Yes.
How does that work?
You can do it in many different ways.
There's no petri dish involved in that.
No, that would be interesting though, wouldn't it? Not in my research. No, I do run experiments though.
Yes.
So for example, if you compare different marketing communications, like advertising, for example, you could have people look at different ads, ask them a bunch of questions, and then you compare them. And that way you figure out whether it's better to have a certain person on an ad or another person on an ad. So that's an experiment because you compare different outcomes.
Okay. So you're like the serious version of this kind of marketing research kind of thing that a startup might be doing.
The one that uses theory. Yeah.
But you do it like sort of in depth and.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's so much going on in retail now. So if you're interested in consumers, that's pretty much where you want to be, right?
Yes. So it is in retail.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. What is going on in retail?
Let me tell you, I've got 2 new research projects going on. Thanks for asking.
The right person is. This is great. Okay.
I've got 2 new research projects. We've just started. They're funded by Handelsrådet.
Okay.
That means that they need to be practically relevant, right? So that retailers can actually use our research.
Okay. Okay. So it can't just be sort of.
No. So with my colleague Hannah Barry, we look at live video shopping.
Live video shopping. That's a big thing in China.
But it's becoming a big thing here too.
Okay.
So you could, for example, do a live chat with a person who is a store associate within a physical store, but you can call up from home and have the same kind of a customer meeting.
So it's like the stage before ordering something online.
Yeah. But you don't have to go into the store, but you do so in a digital format.
Of browsing a website, I actually browse hey everyone, I'm in this store and I'm looking at things here, and you go, I want to see that one over there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or it could be like you have an event. So for example, if we had a live stream of this, people could attend the conference, but from other parts, and they could still interact with us through chat functions, and we could maybe showcase products, and they could shop.
So and then I'm sorry for adding lots of stupid definitions, but it's like a hybrid event moved into retail.
Exactly. Yes. It's a mixture of marketing, retailing, and customer services. Service meetings. And
are there like special digital platforms coming up and evolving to support this? Or
yes, obviously there are a few. We're working with Bambuser and Shell & Company.
Bambuser is a Swedish video streaming service that pivoted into
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And they've run so many of these, and that's really good for us as researchers because then we've got the actual data.
Okay.
Yep. And then we work with Shell & Company, and they've been doing so many live streams.
I've actually watched that because then they on their site you can like see somebody, but then it's usually their staff. Demoing a thing.
But that's the thing, it's their staff.
Yeah.
So many other brands use their influencers or new influencers, and there's a big question whether you should use the influencers or your staff associates or your store associates, right?
Yeah.
And Shell & Company would argue that you use the people you have in store.
Yeah.
This is more trustworthy, they know more about the products.
Somebody that's trying to sell you something. It's not like sort of that kind of thing.
Honest selling.
Yeah. But I must say that I enjoy that part of just watching a video on the site because I can see the size of something and I can see how maybe things go together and this is how it works. So this is how this new microphone that we're using here works like this. Yeah. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. It's one of those things we talked about. There was a breakout session on retail.
Yeah.
And we talked about how e-commerce has sort of landed a little bit. It is what it is, and it has been for a good long while now. And this might be the one thing that can sort of drive it a little bit forward, that you get a different experience when buying things online. Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, I'm doing the research. I'm not selling this.
Of course. I mean, we're doing the live shopping of your research here.
Yeah.
That's like a meta, like a meta level of what you're doing. And this is, and now we're gonna do like a full circle thing because Ola Alvarsson, the guy that started SiME or SiME, that then became this conference because originally at the beginning it was actually some kind of a industry association for internet producers. He was actually one of the first big online retailers that failed wonderfully.
That's how you learn, isn't it?
Yeah, we had some wonderfully big Swedish crashes in the beginning of the 21st century. We had Boo.com, and then we had Box,
famous one.
which was Ola's. But again, I mean, the learning experience from, I think, the whole industry in that was a big thing. So what's, have you any takeaways from SiME so far from you today? Or
I like the retailing part. You know, it was one of the really nice bits where you get to sit around a table and have a proper chat to other people who you've never met. But everyone who was in that room was really interested in retailing and used to work with retailing in one capacity or another. So that was an interesting take, I think.
So
more conversational.
When you sit in a room like that with people who might have either worked or still work in retail, as in they're the ones, you know, trying to get the things off the shelves.
Yeah.
What do you sort of feel like asking them, or what sort of what you're listening for when you're sort of from your research perspective?
Well, we had interesting conversations on metaverse, which is one of those topics that everyone is talking about, but we don't really know what it is yet. But how you can metaverse proof your products for retail, that was interesting. Connects a little bit with what I know other brands are investigating. I've got a friend who said, why do what we do in the real world? Why do that in metaverse? You've got it in the real world already. Why not do something completely different?
Exactly.
Instead,
I actually have an analogy for that one because I visited when I was in San Francisco. I visited one of the biggest online virtual worlds, Second Life, and they built a VR version of Second Life, and they said, we in the virtual world, we aren't making people look like people. We're, you know, you can look like a crocodile or a Marvel comic or something because it's make believe anyway.
Yeah,
so we take it to like the whole way out and not trying to sort of emulate the.
No, you want to avoid uncanny valley, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
we're getting questions there. Live question. Look, okay, here's a question from LinkedIn user. How do you actually research live video shopping? We kind of touched on it before, but how do you actually research live video shopping?
Oh, we're going to do that with a number of different methods. Okay. So we're going to run a set of interviews, both with people who work with it, so from store associates and people at Bambuser and Shell Company, and from the consumers to see expectations and learnings from both ends. Yeah. We're going to run surveys asking questions. So, for example, could be digging into what's typical in service research is looking at satisfaction, for example, and purchases and so forth. We're going to look at different sets of live video shopping, the different ways of doing it, what kind of effect that has depending on what kind of brand you have, how do you set it up, is it different, does it produce different effects for different consumers, does it drive sales? You know, that's one of the big things. So correlate what we know with actual sales data and figure out whether you know, for example, if you use a promo code, we can track those sales and see whether you sell more during the actual live video session or afterwards. Because many of these videos are then posted on the websites to make the website experience much more interesting.
So the long tail of the whole.
Exactly, but we don't know about these effects. So that would be one thing.
Oh, okay. Cool. Look at this.
Hello.
Come here. Stand here. You have a shared microphone here. Okay. This is another. Cool. And by the way, we'll probably be switching subjects, but thank you, Carina, for the whole super interesting live shopping research.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Awesome. And this is an old friend. This is Thomas Huttenlocher.
Hello.
And as for everybody else, I say to everybody, who are you and what do you do?
Oh, you know, I'm just one part of the wholeness manifested in this meat costume.
Not this one, but the other one, the one inside.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but you're a musician.
Yeah, music producer. Yeah, music producer. I'm a barber. I'm a club owner, and I use my creativity to, you know, whatever comes to my senses.
Yeah, and any so far, I mean, it's only the beginning of SiME here today, but any takeaways so far that you've sort of any impressions?
So my thing is to set the right musical vibe here. So like I like to tune into what is said on stage and to find the right musical vibe to it, and also like keeping the energy up in the room.
Yeah. Okay. Well, were you here for the session about? Let's see. But the first session this morning after Ola was not the innovation guy, the other one, the one on the stage who was on about connections and interactions and
the personal behavior,
that one. Yeah, exactly. Yes, you watched that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you see that one?
About a minute.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I saw this weird test paper he gave out to everybody that I didn't get anything with that. Anyway, after having watched that, what was in your head when you went up to start playing music again after sort of his kind of session? What would that sort of influence you to create and play?
Oh my God! I have to be honest.
Be honest.
Yeah. No, so I didn't think anything in correspondence to his thing. I just had I had my next cue going on. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
He talked a lot about trust, though, didn't he? Yeah,
he did.
And
Exactly,
and some of us had a conversation on that afterwards. That you need to be show yourself a little bit vulnerable if you're going to get people to trust you, which is one of those things that we are going to look at in live video shopping, because it's unscripted, just like this. You don't know what's going to happen.
No, you have no
This
idea.
might go completely wrong. That's why you want to watch it, right?
Yeah. I mean, and trust is key in innovation, creativity, interactions, and the interesting thing is, I went to a leadership seminar the week, and they did just 3 super simple icebreaker questions, and they went from strangers in the room to small groups interacting with. This feels good, and how quickly with the right questions you can actually
People together,
enhance trust and actually get people to start. And vulnerability was one of the key questions, because it was like sort of, tell me something that went wrong last week, and people get to, they get to sort of say, well, I missed this or that, but I didn't do that. The kind of a opening part, and then you add on that, you say, well, tell me something you're proud of from last week. And then you get to sort of, well, I feel okay with myself anyway. But then we've both sort of opened up and we've sort of come back on it. And a couple of those questions, and we were very quickly, we sort of entered into a good feeling together.
Yeah. But I think it's also a maturity thing to be vulnerable, or to show yourself to being vulnerable, and have a transparency when it comes to who you are. The older I get, the less that I have to defend.
But then you don't have anything to prove anymore.
Exactly.
The whole thing. So yes, definitely. I mean, maybe my 18-year-old self hadn't been as quick to vulnerability as my now soon to be very much older self.
We're going to talk about ageism later on. It's not.
Yes, we are.
To get older.
We are going to talk about ageism, but and I saw that in the program. Leading question, but do you think it's a thing?
Yes.
Ageism?
I do research on it. Ask me anything.
Whatever.
Why did I?
When it comes to creative stuff, ask me.
Why did I bring an encyclopedia to my live show? We should be on Sport
together,
you and me.
Yeah. And I can terrible.
And I can pretend I know things, and I can. What do you think? And then you can answer the question. No.
Actually, I know a guy. He's working with.
I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy. He's measuring, when they're building streets and stuff like that, and his thing is to remember, photographically, every street that he has seen. So you can show him a picture of any street in any city.
Say where it is.
It's amazing.
We were talking ageism. It is a thing, especially in I think the societal thing, culture. And in Sweden, it's a thing. Because in Sweden, ever since I grew up as a kid, I've always experienced ageism as a thing in Sweden, because if you're 15, you go there. If you're 20, you go there. You don't go there. And if you're over 40, you don't mix with the kids. You go over there. You go with the old people and kind of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a very sort of segregated society.
It is. And also you don't take care about the elderly, taking care of the knowledge and,
I mean, I'm half Greek, so I grew up kind of in a,
with the big
kids
family,
all ages, and everybody partying as hard as each other, no matter if you're sort of 15 or 75. which creates a different kind of just sort of non-bias, I feel, when it comes to age.
I think it's changing. More and more people are talking about this.
Yeah.
And also because the people who are getting older now aren't part of the silent generation, that they were okay with being in the elderly care, being silent.
Yeah.
You know, people who turn 65 today are not okay with that. They still want to work. They still, want to live. And so, also I find that if we run experiments on this, so what happens if you, for example, add older people to advertising, right? You break the stereotype. Instead of having a pretty young lady, you have an older pretty lady. It turns out people actually like that, both young and old, because it opens up for us to be who we are.
Yeah.
We're not all in that tiny little stereotype.
It's more okay to be older.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be fair, it's advertising, right? So there's still someone who's good looking and someone who can sell something in an ad, but it's someone who's older, and we're not used to seeing that. And people comment on it. Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
It's good.
More human.
But I think you're. I mean, with the aging population and the generation, the people who were saying on stage here, when this generation gets to a point where they are 70 or 80, they probably won't behave as my grandparents did.
Most probably not. No.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
They might, and their kids will probably think that they're just as old as I thought my grandparents were, because we, like that. But I think it's going to be a different thing. I think so. And of course, the 70 is the new
50
whatever.
or
That,
something.
that whole kind of thing. We seem to be hearing that all the time.
You're 20, right?
To be.
No, but it is like you need to sort of travel, waste your money before the next part of your life, right? When you're 20, it's before you end up having children and you're locked up.
Yeah.
When you're 70, it's before you're too old to go out and enjoy.
Yeah, well, that's the old thing that when you're old enough to buy a sports car, you're too old to drive it.
No.
Yeah, but most people agree on that we are actually really young at heart, on the inside. But it's the only deal. It's the meat costume that is getting older, and to be more okay about being young at heart and letting that be, the steering thing in your life.
But it's interesting because there are so many sort of weird paradoxes when it comes to aging, because if you look at blues music, right? Like blues music, like the rhythm and blues. You see the old guys from Louisiana, and that they can be B.B. King. I mean, they can be 70, 80, and that's still super cool. So that works. And then you have sort of other genres where you go, what's that old guy doing there? Yeah. It's really weird how it's still music. I mean, and
I agree.
Will you still be doing turntables when you're?
Most probably, I will.
I think you will.
Yeah, and I will get away with it.
Of course you will.
Yeah. But
Clubber gets away with it.
Yeah.
Klaus Beersam, and he's like what?
Yeah, nobody knows.
Nobody knows. I think he was around in like Jura or Krita or something like that. I think.
No, but also like when it comes to playing at clubs, I don't do that much anymore because it's too tiring. The price is too high. So it becomes natural.
National divide. Yeah. You mean the whole
the corporate thing more okay.
I think that's enough about that. This is just a short coffee break chat. Innovation Fika every Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. live on LinkedIn and YouTube and all over the world, with of course billions and billions of viewers.
Of course.
Recorded for afterlife. So our grandkids will be seeing this, going, "Oh my God, they're embarrassing." Talking about aging.
We put that under failure. Is that the correct?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, thanks everyone. I might be doing another broadcast this afternoon. Who knows? If nothing else, next Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Innovation Fika. Check us out.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Donnie.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You too. Cheers.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Lovely meeting you.